Welcome to Tea in the Garden, a hilariously human spiritual podcast. Here, ancient wisdom is remembered and every conversation is a wild ride.
We're three neurodivergent witchy women rooted in curiosity, creativity, and conscious living, here to spill the tea on what really matters.
From psycho-spiritual theory to ancient history, shadow work to entrepreneurship, we're not afraid to go deep, get brutally honest, and laugh a lot along the way.
I'm Lauren New.
I'm Savannah Alloway.
And I'm Priscilla Doak. Come sip the cosmic tea with us. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about all of the stages of spiritual awakening. And I think what I'm most excited to talk about today with Savvy and Lauren and all of you guys listening is all of the unexpected things that happen in deeper phases of awakening, in those deeper stages. You know, there is a lot that comes post, I need to look spiritual, I need to talk spiritual, I need to check all these spiritual boxes, right? And a lot of what we see in our spiritual communities, majority of people who are new to awakening, new to the path, quote unquote, new to personal growth and development. Really, a lot of it is a new costume, right? This new ego. And even when you think and you're telling yourself and you're telling everyone that it's not, it in fact is. And you discover this as you journey, right? As you deepen your path and come into a more, I think, grounded sense of self, right? Everybody is spiritual until the costume has to come off, until the feathers have to come out of your hair and the hat has to come off of your head and the cool jewelry is off your body. Then what, right? Then who are you? Who are you when you're talking to your family and friends? Who are you in situations that are not ideal? Who are you when you're really uncomfortable, when you're traveling, when you're at a bar, when you're overstimulated, et cetera, right? So if this path is real, we have found out that you often wind up in the coffee and a cigarettes era, as we call it. And now we're not saying you need to consume cannabis or nicotine. The point of this kind of meme is pointing to, like, we shed the need for all the external woo-woo spiritual looking stuff, and we return to the things that we once thought we might never have in our life, the things that we once had to cut off so starkly from us, right? So this path is not about becoming less human. It's not about taking ourselves out of the world, but actually finding our place in it, finding our power in ourselves, in our bodies, in our communities, and becoming so real, so ourselves that we don't need anything else. Yes, we still might choose it, but we don't.
So we thought we might index the typical full round the circle of the spiritual awakening all the way back to that full circle moment where you're kind of look like you're not spiritual anymore, but you're more spiritual than ever. So phase one of many we're going to talk about today is the pre-awakening. You maybe have some interest in all things esoteric, occult, spiritual, shamanic, but you don't really have any push to go very deeply into it. So you're still what many people in the New Age call asleep, but there's some sort of spiritual function in your life. Maybe you carry some crystals, maybe you have a tarot deck, maybe you go to yoga a couple times a week, but it's not really part of your life because honestly, things might be very comfortable for you. And so we transitioning into the next phase where we have that initial awakening. Usually there's a canon event. Something happens that is so earth-shattering to your ego and what you thought you were that you start to realize, oh, I'm a spirit in a body for a short time. So this is that stage, that pre-awakening, where we're still very much in our programming, family conditioning, survival mode, religion or anti-religion, different gender roles, different nervous system patternings, unconscious ego behaviors and structures. We're really into achieve, compile, and what we look like and what's our image. But more and more in this phase, there starts to be a numbing a vague dissatisfaction, a spiritual hunger that is developed. There might be depression, anxiety, restlessness, overperforming, going in loops of overperforming and burning out until you kind of hit this point of what is the point? What is the point of this loop, of this rat race? There has to be more than this. And for some people, it happens spontaneously, and for some, there's a canon event that happens.
So once that canon event happens, you start to go through this initial awakening, which I think in the beginning we think is so profound. Not that it's not, but we think, I thought anyways, that this is it. Like you have one awakening, this heartbreak, this job loss, this big thing that happened. I am now aware that it is not the way that I thought it was. Life, the world, the universe isn't what I thought it was. And now I need to figure it out, right? I need to do something different. I personally remember crying out to, I don't know what at the time, I didn't know what I was talking to at the time, but just being like, I don't know what I need to do to change, but I will do anything. Just give me the next step, right? So that's where a lot of us are in our initial awakening. And as this cracking open happens, we start to search, right? We start to search. We start to find, a lot of people, plant medicine, meditation, astrology, breath work, yoga, all of these different spiritual concepts, spiritual wisdom. And this is really where we, I think, start to shed our old identity, but unfortunately start to take on another identity that isn't quite ours just yet. So some telltale signs of this are going to be having to perform, right? Having to look a certain way, having to do a certain thing. Oh, I got this crystal for this and this oil for this. And oh, I don't partake in that because it's low energy.
It's like the performance we had in the Muggle world just switches right over to like the spiritual world. And the ego, I'm not here anymore. I've dissolved. I'm spiritual now. And it's like, oh no, honey, your ego just had a costume change.
But the problem is, you won't know this. You will not believe it. You won't believe it. You won't when you're in it. You just won't.
And that's okay. We've all been there. As long as you don't get stuck in these things, it's all just part of the process, right? So there is a part in the beginning where we do become awakened to more truths that are available to us, but we can also kind of get wrapped up in what we think it looks like and get into this performative aspect of the spirituality. I know for me, I went vegan, nothing wrong with being vegan, but for me, I went into it for the wrong reasons, right? And I went extreme very quickly. I started doing yoga, I started doing meditation, but I also started getting really, really negative about stuff and really dark about stuff, and really opinionated about stuff and really judgy about stuff. So that was just part of, the journey, is realizing that it's not about what other people are doing or controlling what other people are doing or judging. It's more about you and how you're integrating. But again, we don't know that yet.
There becomes an allergy to nuance. Everything's like high vibe or low vibe. This is like, you're like a teenager. You've just come into something. You're like, I'm an adult. Like, no, you're a teenager.
Yeah. And it's like, I noticed, I think the judgment component is almost the biggest highlight of this phase, in the sense that, like, you aren't internally able to catch what your ego is masking as, right? However, what you might start to actually be able to perceive, especially if you're in this phase right now, is that you might be telling yourself, thinking thoughts, saying it out loud, they just don't get it. These all my friends, like, I can't have all these conversations with them. They're so brainwashed. They're just sheeple. They are all just fluoride bots. My family doesn't get it, whatever. And is there a certain truth in that? Sure. Like, they might not have the same information you do, but like, yo, you were there like 2 months ago, homie. Like, you were there 2 years ago, even. We've all been there, and it doesn't make someone stupid or incapable, right? And so to belittle others in the process of your awakening is something to really be mindful of in this phase.
And it's easy to find a reason to reject a lot of things, like completely reject the entire human life that you've been living. Very teenager. But all of a sudden, these things, these people, habits, school, job, religion, different aesthetics, friends even, are, what did you say, fluorite bots? and we can also see, though, the urgency to enlighten others, especially for those coming from the church. We go from proselytizing the gospel to needing to tell everyone about what we're learning and discovering about the universe. And we talked about this in previous episodes. Very big, very, very, very big mistake, because nobody asked. And we want, even then, our new spiritual ego wants to, which is just the ego in a new disguise, we want everyone to perceive us as spiritual now. We get it. We're awakened, and needing to say that all the time and visibly look like a wook, look like a granola hippie, so that, people can now perceive us in this new way. And it's literally the same thing that you were doing before your awakening, just trying to make some sort of transition.
And I think this comes from, we haven't integrated yet, right? We're getting all of this amazing wisdom and knowledge, and it's all beautiful. But until it's integrated, it can be very egotized, right? And used. And we see that in spiritual fuckboys. We see that in the mindfulness girly coaches. Just manifest it. My favorite saying, right? It is there. But once we start to integrate it, that ego, that judgment, it does begin to purge, right?
And, as we maybe have spent a few years on our path, again, this happens at different periods for everyone, right? But you might be past those initial information grabs. You have locked in on your practices. You may now have, really been practicing and interested for a number of years. We enter what we call phase 3, or the spiritual ego phase. Ooh, this one I think is honestly one of the trickiest of the trickiest.
Fuck my dad.
Slimiest of the slimiest phases. I'm enlightened now. I'm a healer. Oh, but I'm peaceful. I'm not engaging in that, or I'm not going to have that conversation with you because it's just I just don't talk about those things anymore. It starts to masquerade in ways that are very obsessed with needing to tell people and needing to validate your internal experiences externally, right? That's how I would summarize it. It's when you feel the need, that you need people to hear your stories, need people to hear your crazy meditation experience, need people to know that you experienced this state of Kundalini or Samadhi for 2 hours, need people to know that you don't really need food, need people to know that you don't drink anymore, and here's why.
I'm a vegan.
Yeah. And you don't.
How do you know someone's a vegan?
Yeah.
They'll tell you.
Right. And it's funny because, right, nobody ever knows I am until Sav says it. And that's just, again, not to get into the ego, just as an example of I don't even think about it. I don't feel a need to talk about it for the most part unless somebody asks me. You know what I mean? It's not even a second thought because it's integrated, right? And so what we're pointing to here is what we often get lost in the middle of our awakening chapters here is this obsession with superiority, even in our own self, though. This is what we have to remember with our own self. It might not be even with other people, but treating your own past version of yourself as lesser than, right? Old you, past you as dumb, as silly, as unawakened, as unhealed, as just all of these really negative terms that are saying I reject those parts of myself, and I'm now only grasping onto the other side over here. And that comes with a lot of problems, right? We create this new superiority complex. We create a obsession with purity in a lot of ways, in a new form, right? New forms of purity. We over-identify.
Translated.
New age spirituality.
yeah, we over identify with a lot of imagery, terminology, labels yet again, right? We might have really more rigid structures and rules for our life, which again, they have benefit, right? They have their time and their place, but we're going to look at also what do we miss? So what do we miss in the process of this, right? We miss the nuance, we miss the gray of life. We miss the messiness and beautifulness and perfection of reality. And we're now what we call spiritually bypassing. This is a big thing that can happen in this phase, right? Is like bypassing a lot. What do I mean by this? Often you'll know somebody's in this phase when, say, you're having a conversation with someone you're dating and this guy's like a spiritual practitioner, right? And you're telling him, hey, I'm feeling really anxious because I didn't hear from you for 3 days. And like that is just provoking for me. Like, I wanted to talk to you about it. I do appreciate consistent communication. And this guy's like, yeah, that's your own wound and your own projection. I am not bound by, time. So I don't appreciate you trying to like tell me when I should or should not communicate. And, I don't think we should see each other anymore. This is just a extreme but very real example.
Like such an amazing Kundalini awakening together. You'll always be in my heart.
Yeah, I'll always have the utmost love and respect for you. But won't simply say, "Oh my gosh, I would never want to make you feel anxious. I have no problem sending you a text in the morning. I'm so glad you let me know." Taking responsibility and accountability for how we are affecting people in our intimate sphere is huge. And this is a big thing that gets missed in the spiritual ego phase, right? So let's look at the final classic signs that somebody hasn't fully integrated into the humanity, to the human experience, to compassion, to integration. So the signs that somebody has got stuck in this spiritual ego phase, they can't tolerate non-duality, contradiction, differing opinions, differing practices, differing paths. They speak in absolutes. They bypass real pain and suffering and discomfort with, it's all okay, it's all perfect, everything's going to happen, everything's happening for a reason. Often they're really ungrounded in money, time, in relationships. Surprise, surprise.
Wow, yeah, what a shock.
They really haven't necessarily mastered coming in the body, somatics, embodiment, nervous system regulation for themselves or for others. If something is uncomfortable or making them look at their shadow, they call it unaligned. They are often broadcasting, rarely listening to others, rarely just sitting and absorbing and watching and being the student, right? They perform being beyond, being zen, being peaceful and transcending instead of just being real, just being messy, right? And showing up that way. This is where many of us get stuck for years, by the way. We often see this phase last for years. I was definitely in this phase for years, in certain ways, for sure.
Definitely see people stuck there the longest. But as we know, what goes up must come all the fucking way down. We have the next phase, phase 4 on the spiritual awakening path. The purge, the dissolution. Okay, I burned fucking everything down. Now what? I got nothing. And there then begins the real work. The real work. Our new identity we've taken on starts to dissolve. Our new spiritual friendships may start to devolve. Our new idea of what we want to do with our life, our vocation, our career starts to dissolve. Everything just starts to dissolve and you feel like you're losing your mind. This, to me, is the real first awakening. Because now, okay, we've really, really gone into the light. The shadow's like, you have suppressed me all your life and extra these past few, however long it's been, years. I'm still here and I'm hungry and I'm huge because you've put everything that you don't like about yourself, that you think's unlovable, unworthy about yourself, into the shadow, and it has grown and grown and grown. And so we will see old wounds really start to surface, things that we thought we healed. We thought we healed at that yoga retreat. So this period is very dark. This is the dark night of the soul. And very much can look like isolation, grief, disorientation, just a lot of collapse happening around nervous system overwhelm, because we just threw away our entire old life. We're not at the new one yet, and we don't know how to regulate. So there's a lot of overwhelm in the body. Even more inability to function in normal life. Last phase, we were dwindling that. Now we're not able to function anywhere, basically. And then, of course, confusion about, do I surrender? I'm kind of all the way pinned the fuck down on the bottom of the Mariana Trench. How can I surrender? I'm already at rock bottom. So this is where we see all of the unmetabolized pain, attachment wounds, trauma, rage, fear, our grandiosity, the ways that we think we should be recognized, the things that we hate about ourselves, the things we find unlovable about ourselves, all of our dependencies, codependencies, addictions. Very unglamorous phase, extremely necessary, because it's like we've built that shadow up so much by, in our spiritual path, rejecting so much about ourselves, the past self, as Priscilla said. And it's coming back with a vengeance,
I feel like this phase is so humbling in the most beautiful way. It really humbles the shit out of you and reconnects you with life, with others, with being a listener, a child, a student. And in a lot of ways, I would describe this, how these phases have felt for me are astronaut floating in space, the tether was cut. And it's like, I literally don't even know which way is up, what way is the ground, where's anything happening around me. And all I can do is surrender.
And I will tell you that 99% of our year one students at the National Intuitive Academy find us in this phase. And we kind of throw a lasso out to them, pull them back down to earth, and be like, okay, guys, now the real learning begins.
And that takes like recentering things, right? Recentering things that you thought were important and starting to bring it back to the basics.
A master, I say all the time to our students, a master of the basics is the master.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so we're sitting at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, and there's a lot that happens down here, a lot of alchemy. We've been building up the light body, so we have a lot of light to work with, but gosh, we have a lot of shadow to work with too. So Lauren's going to detail that after this quick message.
Are you a highly sensitive empath looking to master your natural healing gifts? Have you felt your whole life that you were meant for something more? This is your invitation to join the National Intuitive Academy. Develop your psychic gifts, read tarot and astrology birth charts, authentic yoga, Reiki certifications, shamanic rites, Ayurvedic medicine, classical tantra. You are not alone. Join a community of empathic beings and teachers dedicated to your growth. We will help you master ancient healing sciences and develop spiritual business and marketing skills. Become the healer you are meant to be. Are you ready to start your journey?
There is a difference in the women's kind of awakening arc versus male awakening arc. And it tends to be that as female bodied individuals, we have to really dissolve and break apart a lot of our conditioning, because men and women are conditioned differently in our society, obviously, right? So as women, we are programmed to have relational enmeshment, to feel responsible for other people, to want to fix things, to perform, to people please. Especially we women are conditioned to people please, and kind of we become this shapeshifter in our life to make everyone else comfortable, to shrink down, to become palatable, to be a good girl, right? And so I feel oftentimes as women, when we're going through this path of the dissolving aspect of it, is we have to deconstruct who we were told we were.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a dissolving of the false self, and we really get to step into that reclamation of following our instincts, listening to our intuition, being in control of our bodies, having autonomy, being able to feel all of the feelings that we've been suppressing this entire time while we're so busy trying to make everyone else happy, which oftentimes comes out as a lot of rage, as well as desire for something different than what we've been told we are supposed to want or the way we're supposed to perform. So letting go of this kind of everybody else's opinion matters and really recentering on, what do I care about? You know, what do I believe? What do I want? Really stepping into that self-trust and coming out of this fragmentation of being and performing and being all these different things for different people. So in a sense, this is like the ego death is not first. It is really like an ego formation that has been manipulated by other people, right? So a self has to come forward. We have to figure out who we are so that we can step into that. Versus the male clients and male students that we've worked with, right? They oftentimes have to begin building their emotional intelligence, building their emotional range, because boys and men oftentimes are taught to be assertive, to take what you want, right? To just say it, to don't be a pussy, right? I was in the Army, they say that a lot. So men typically are going to have to start to learn how to build safety within themselves, build their emotional intelligence, and also build like a conscience, build empathy, compassion for other people, building humility, building their inner authority. And I won't say that this is like the end all be all, right? There are cases where this may be different, but this is just what we've often seen. They have to rebuild their inner authority instead of that external posturing of I'm the man and this is how it is, right? So this kind of helps men learn to build devotion, right? Service, responsibility, stepping into that steadiness, that groundedness, that self-discipline, and really softening the defense, the ego, while strengthening the more authentic soul, the authentic self.
The women have to become more selfish and the men have to become less selfish. This is reminding me of that.
I was just gonna say that.
Very popular meme that's like a guy does ayahuasca for the first time. And he's like, other people have feelings?
The way I acted affected someone else? Whoa. Yeah. Whereas I think as women, we're constantly worried about how we're affecting other people.
Yeah.
And so the women version is like, how I held my boundary, piss someone off, and I don't care.
And I'm owning that, right? Yeah, because we're talking here, guys, about the feminine polarity versus the masculine polarity. When you are a hyper feminine being, whether you are in it doesn't matter what body you're in, if you're a hyper feminine person, you will have generally the same problem of a discounted sense of self and an overemphasis on others. And when you're in the masculine polarity, it's the opposite. You have an inflated sense of self and an underrepresented connection and empathy and focus on others. And so this is something that I just have noticed is so lacking in the conversations of spirituality and awakening in general. So much of the language we've been seeing, at least I can say for the last few thousand years, has been centered on masculine perspective, on the male polarity and how a man or a masculine energy comes to enlightenment. These paths have focused on masculine experience in many cases, where they're talking a lot about this must destroy the ego, must destroy lust, must destroy material attachment. The truth is that is golden for those that are hyper masculine. This is the Achilles heel. Yeah. However, for those that are very in the feminine polarity, this doesn't necessarily yield the same results. Sometimes it actually creates even more disharmony because that was never our problem to begin with. Our problem, as Lauren was saying, is hyper fixating on others, on external reality, on the feelings and emotional state and responsibilities of our community. This is already our superpower. What we need to do is come into our internal power, our internal Shakti, that like anchor, that solidarity inside of ourselves as the feminine.
Yes. So as this rock bottom moment, whether we're dissolving or building back up or a combination of the two, as this continues and time goes on, it will become more and more apparent who has done the integration and grounding work and who has not. What is the first thing that we do when we have a new student and they're like, I want to learn how to astral project? Like, great. You're going to be grounding for at least the first 3 months, if not 6. We're going to have
you get that ass in some grass and in your body.
Yeah, you're going to be doing breath work. You're going to be putting your feet on the earth. You're going to be doing somatic practices because you basically have to relearn how to be human. That is what you're rebuilding from this rock bottom, building upon the foundation that is rock bottom. Yeah. So signs that people are not necessarily doing that very essential. I call it like, I need you to wax on, wax off for me a bunch of times. Wax on, wax off, wax on, from the Karate Kid. So that by the time we actually get to the cool stuff, they know how to wax on, wax off with their eyes closed. And that opens up so many cooler spiritual tools to them with so much ease.
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? We've observed a lot of data points over the years. We've gotten a really beautiful perspective here amongst us three, right? We've been in the position, in the privilege of witnessing thousands of different people from all around the world, different ages, different backgrounds, go through their own awakening. Since all of us have been in this game of coaching, of mentorship, of teaching and leading in the space for many, many years. And one thing I've personally seen a lot of, which ties into this point very much so, is how common it is to see people super in spiritual psychosis, right? And I want to talk about what that looks like, because sometimes you might hear that term and think, well, that's extreme. That's not me. There are more extreme cases, but let me tell you what it often can look like and begin to look like, because to me, this is the biggest indicator of someone who needs to come down to reality, like Sav just said, needs to put their ass in the grass, and absolutely doesn't need to be doing more astral projection, third eye initiations and such.
Outside my window, and it had blue feathers, and I looked up what the spiritual meaning of blue feathers mean, and it means that I should cut my mom off and I should quit my job. That's how y'all sound.
Yeah. Oh, no. Or the ones that are like, I just met this person and we have had hundreds of lives together. They are my twin soul flame butt plug, and we are going to be together forever. And it's like, you've known them for 5 minutes, Samantha.
And you said this last week, the last person you met, yeah. And the thing is, what we start to see when someone is in this phase of missing integration, but a lot of experience, spiritual experience. Now, this isn't to discount the experience. Those experiences are real in the metaphysical sense. They're real, right? The problem is, when somebody starts to have these experiences of blasting off into the cosmos, remote viewing planets, meeting angels, having ego deaths or outer body experiences, it's life-changing. It is, right? It opens your eyes to a whole different world, a whole new world. But what often happens is someone hyperfixates on chasing those highs over and over again, fixates on the experience being the indicator of their consciousness or their awakening when it has actually nothing to do with it. And let me explain what I mean by that. Anyone can have a spiritual experience at any point. That person that drives you the most bonkers in your life, that narcissistic ex of yours, can have the most wild spiritual experience on ayahuasca just like you can. The difference between you and that guy is in your integration, is in the actual work you do on yourself, not the highs of experience, of spiritual experience, right? Of meditative experience. So when we see somebody that has not done this grounding or integration work, they're talking about these experiences a lot, but their life doesn't feel like it fits with what they're saying that they are, where they're saying they're at, right? Something just feels off. When you're listening to them, you're like, okay, wait, you're talking about all these experiences you've had of God, but like, why do you treat your family like shit? You're talking about your ability to lucid dream and astral project, but why do all your ex-girlfriends say you like ruined their life? You know, like, where is the accountability? Where is the responsibility in the world, in relationships, right? You've been homeless for 3 years? Like, no, seriously though, like there's many people in the spiritual community, and this is no shade, but like, it hurts me to see all of these really beautiful souls that have a beautiful connection to themselves and the divine, absolutely dysfunctional in the world, having no idea how to sustain their life in the world.
You need both.
You're talking about station, you got $1 in your bank account.
You have to be able to function in the human experience. That's why you're in a human body. Hello. If you're meant to just leave it all the time, why the hell would you be in this incarnation? So when we start to see this attachment to the non-physical and a valuing of the non-physical over the physical, or, you know, like a superiority, this is where we start to see a red flag. What we can also see is this concept of being special, different, chosen. As I think Savvy said in one of our last podcasts, like, you're special and so is everyone else, right? This quote, and it's so true. It's so important to ground ourselves in that. Yes, you are God, and so is everyone else. The problem lies in you thinking you and you alone are Jesus Christ reincarnate, right? Or you are Cleopatra, you are all these things. That is just a new identity and separation. It creates a further separation of the ego. We often can also see that somebody who has not yet grounded and integrated and embodied their spiritual practice absolutely cannot receive feedback or criticism without total shutdown or defensiveness, or, to be honest, saying you're projecting and cutting that person out of their life completely, not even being receptive to any feedback, open to the fact that they hurt someone, right? This is a red flag. This is a red flag in a major lack of integration, right? And a spiritual ego starting to take over someone. We often also see that these individuals are valuing intensity of experience over the mundane, you could say, right? Truthfully, right? Like chasing those highs, those experiences, right? Without appreciating and being grateful for and seeing the godliness in their family, in their lover, in their cleaning dishes, in their job that might not be perfect right now, but like they can still find a path forward through that, right? When somebody is embodied, they view these things just as important and divine as their meditation practice or their ayahuasca ceremony, right? And there's often this big dissociation from the body, right? Mm-hmm. From this somatic reality, from pleasure and desire, from sexuality even, right? We can see like this rejection happen, this new rejection of like, all those things are lower, right? Though all those things are base desires. And actually that really indicates somebody is missing a huge perspective in their spiritual path. They haven't quite gotten to this point of understanding that there is this spectrum. All these things are important, right? All these realities are true.
In some cases, it's like escapism, right? They're exactly. Escaping the reality of what it
Mm-hmm.
is here and how it affects you, and just they're like, no, we're just going to completely skip over that.
Right.
Mhm.
And a lot of times the reason for that actually is because that person is out of control.
Mm.
If you have control over it, you are neutral. Like
Mhm.
those that are
It's
still out of control of their lust are going to shame the sex, are going to shame the women who provoke them and tempt them, are going to reject the spiritual paths that are more sensual or feminine, right? They're going to reject the goddess, all these things, because they are out of control of their own self, right?
Mhm. So if you do that work to integrate, to ground, to heal, to confront those deep, dark wounds and parts of yourself and start bringing them back into all that light you created, which we see people, the more we go through these phases, I'm like, wow, a lot of people get stuck here. A lot of people get
Mhm.
stuck here. A lot of people get stuck here. But if you're able to do the boring, long haul work, the non glamorous part, the wax on, wax off, you will come into the next phase, phase 5, and that is where the spiritual identity we created to replace the old self identity, that secondary ego, it starts to collapse as well.
So we want to look at the signs of how we know that that integration has happened, right? How we've entered this phase is I've definitely noticed this one hugely. Language. Language. You see that someone who has integrated speaks very human, speaks very much to people's listening. We talked about this in previous episodes as well, right? How we can fall prey to this, totally missing where somebody is at because we want to say what we want to say. We want to convince, we want to share, and it misses the person, the mirror in front of us, right? When someone is integrated, they're going to speak in simple, understandable terms. They're going to speak to people listening. There isn't a need for performance. There isn't a need for sounding a certain way or looking a certain way. And there is definitely not a need to convince anyone of anything.
Can I give an example?
Yeah.
This is my like very common everyday outfit, okay? Sweatpants and a crop top, okay? I am a high priestess, like super witch, shaman, like whatever. Notice how I'm not wearing draping lace, black lace. Notice how there's not a raven on my shoulder, okay?
And sometimes there might be, but like you don't have to wear that.
No.
And look at all of us right now. We're in actually like t-shirts and sweatshirts. Like we all literally all in red too, which is funny.
because all of those are just props, right? Like they're
fun.
tools, they're fun, and they support the work you do, but they're not the work you do.
Or who you are. Right? In some episodes you see I wear my bindi and like I like my fashion because that's just something I love and enjoy personally. But sometimes a lot of times I'm not wearing it either because I don't need to have it on every time I talk because I don't need to show you that. I wear it when I want to wear it.
That is it in a nutshell. How much do you feel you need to keep proving
Yeah.
that you're spiritual? Because if it's actually integrated and you have it for you, you don't need to keep pushing it.
One of the other things, and I feel like we really get to share so much of this energy together here in this podcast of this, is humor and lightheartedness. God damn, like there's such a lack of that at certain phases, and you'll see it so obviously when you're not in it, right? The seriousness.
Like we
The
say a
laugh-
lot, like if your healer doesn't laugh, run. If they
Run.
can't laugh, if they don't make jokes, if they can't laugh at themselves, fucking run.
Seriously, especially at themselves, right? Like we have to be able to make fun of ourselves. We have to be able to laugh at our shortcomings and our humanness and laugh at the human experience, right? This is definitely something you want to look for, right? And somebody that can really be, again, content with ordinary life, quote unquote. Now, this doesn't mean settling. This doesn't mean you need to be in the matrix. This looks different for everyone, but what I mean is like, right, you're in acceptance of wherever you are, right? Like I don't there was a time where I needed to be out of the country to feel like happy and like I'm living the life I should be living. And that was okay at the time. Like now I live in freaking Michigan. It's not glamorous. I never thought I would be here.
On March 23rd? Jeez.
Yeah, and I really love my life. Like my life is super simple day to day. My life is super, quiet and routine and in my own space and going to the gym and working with my partners, and that's pretty much it. And I'm content with that. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be all these things anymore. And so yes, these are just some of the signs that we're entering that integration phase now. Savvy, talk to us about this next phase, stage 5.
This
Stage
is
5
where
cleaner.
this is where it really starts to get good. Actually, unclinging and unclenching. We've let go of the ego self that we were before and the spiritual identity that replaced it. And so we're ready to step outside of that. I'm a spiritual person. I have to look spiritual. I have to speak spiritual stuff, and it's so serious. And don't laugh at me because this is real, and you don't know what you're talking about. Your low vibration. We're done with that. We've done so much coming to earth and touching grass that we're like, oh, that was just another prison. Hilarious how the whips. And we all go through this. So no shame, no hate, but don't get stuck there. Okay, spend however much time you need to, but don't get stuck there. And so we really are humbled. And I found that personally, I've had to learn the hard way on my path in many ways. I've chosen the left-hand path unconsciously many times. And I just have to be humbled and humbled and humbled and humbled by the universe. And so once we find that humility, we have space now, because everything's not so goddamn serious, for nuance. We realize that we can be a powerful channel of healing and still have things we're working on for ourselves, and we can laugh about them, and that we can speak with so much beauty and artistry and still hold so much pain. In fact, thank God for the pain, because thank you for the trauma. I need it for my art. And that we can still be scared of things. We can still know the ultimate truth and the relative truths and how the world works and all the metaphysical laws, and still be scared of things and still be a person. So we start to see this coexistence of a strengthened spirit and a strengthened human, and starting to have us experience ourselves as God through this human life, not just as God, but through the human life, through the most mundane of moments, like Priscilla was mentioning.
This is really the, in my eyes, the tantric phase. Like that's in essence what tantra is, a stepping into this level of love and maturity and devotion for the human of it all, right?
This phase is kind of short because it rolls right into the next phase, which was like, okay, we're like really integrated. But this is like that transitioning out of the spiritual ego, and we can feel shame. We can feel shame for the way that we treated people. We can feel guilty. We can feel embarrassed for like, oh my God, I went around for 2 years calling myself Blueberry Starfire. What the fuck was that? That was so cringe. And we can actually really judge ourselves. But because we're starting to really do a lot of integration practices and move towards being embodied, we're able to let go of that judgment and be like, okay, I fucked up. I fucked up. And there is this desire to just be normal again. And we can even see this fatigue with constant self-improvement. And this is what we're talking about. Instead of doing like a 7-part meditation in the morning, we start to just experience the divine outside our window with a cup of coffee and some ciggies.
Yeah,
we don't need all that anymore.
It's like that song, "Healing is not my purpose," right? You enter this realization, I don't need to do the fucking healing work all the time. I want to live my life. Like I want to have fun again, right? But I will say the shadow side of this phase, and this, I feel like this has been such a relevant phase for some of our close friends in our circles this last year, that I've had a lot of great conversations with some beautiful women, is like, what happens, what's the shadow of this phase? It's this grief, because the tools that you really relied on and that you got so obsessed with for so many years, now they don't feel like anything anymore. Oof. And it doesn't stay that way forever, but it's super painful, because now your rituals, your yoga practice, your tarot cards feel empty. And it fucking hurts. It hurts. Like, it hurts. It feels scary. And you don't know, like, how do I reconnect again?
Well, it's because we're becoming human again. We have a loss of spiritual certainty. Right?
But I feel like this is where you really start, it really starts to become a way of life and not a performance.
Yeah. It does. Right? Like time. It takes time to find that new groove. Every phase, it takes you that time to find that groove again, because you go through that grieving period of, I don't know what it looks like anymore, because what I was doing, oh, surprise, yet again, doesn't work anymore. and it always happens like that.
So Lauren, take us into that next phase, phase 6. We are integrating, we are becoming a human, but also we have so much spiritually amazing stuff built up as well.
Yeah, so this is like I mentioned just a second ago, this is where we really start to make this part of our life, and it's less a performance, and it starts to be like, okay, do I need to pull cards every single day for every single situation to get spirit to tell me what to do? No, we start to realize that we have all of that within us, and we can just simply sit and make a decision. And that is just as spiritual as going to Miss Chloe and having her tell me what to do, or pulling the cards, right? Or going into a full journey to get the answer, or to step into a new timeline. I realize now that I step into a new timeline every time I make a decision. And those decisions are not glamorous, and they're not big, and they're not huge. It's how I decide to respond to that person that cut me off. It's how I decide to receive someone who brings me something that I did that hurt them. Right? It's less about, it looks spiritual, but it's the most spiritual thing you can do to be human. We are souls having a human experience. We're not humans having a spiritual experience. So it's that full circle, coming full circle, and realizing, like, these beautiful practices that I've learned and maybe kind of over identified with or attached to are beautiful, and they are amazing, but they are not the thing that healed me. I am the thing that healed me. My choices are the thing that changed the timeline. Me simply sitting here and enjoying that I have air in my lungs, I have food for my children, I have safety. That is so beautiful, and what a blessing. And let me sit and enjoy it. I don't need mushrooms. I don't need ayahuasca. I don't need DMT to feel joy. It's really coming back to just being a human and enjoying the simple things, and realizing that I'm a soul having a human experience. So everything I do is spiritual.
Period. Oh man. This phase asks, here's a heavy hitter. Can you rest?
Can you fucking chill?
Can you just exist?
Yeah, it's more of I'm here now, and less of I need to get out of my body. I need to fix things. I need to go tell everyone.
I gotta bounce.
Yeah.
Higher, deeper, even more difficult layer of wax on, wax off. We see a lot of deep nervous system work, maybe like EMDR, deep shadow work, relationship repair, maybe relationships that we just ruined in the previous phases. Consistency, discipline, self-responsibility, integrating grief, humility, and not needing to make a spectacle, but prioritizing more being of substance.
It's a lot more like, this is my circus, this is my monkeys, this is what's in my control, and focusing on that versus what are you doing and what are you doing, and and what do you think of me,
I know a lot of people that in this era, right? Relationships that they once thought would never be in their lives come back. They
Mhm.
they heal them because they changed
That
and
happened with me
they
and my mom.
approve. I know, like
Same.
all of us, this has happened to us in our own lives, but so many of my friends and our students I've seen this happen to in this phase of like years where they cut off or went no contact or just had a really, really challenging relationship with family members or friends or loved ones or exes that comes into a stage of healing that like legitimately they never thought was possible. That feels miraculous.
Oh, it is miraculous, I
It is.
think. But
It is.
like, not to discount any of these previous phases, because I can
No,
say from my personal experience, I needed to go through that period of no contact.
it has to. It has to be
Right?
there.
Because I needed to pull that away, step away, and do my own alchemy to be able to come back and forge
Mhm.
a new relationship.
Yeah, I had the exact same thing with my dad, and when I came through that phase, I realized like when I chose to have a relationship with him, it was because I wanted it, not because he was my dad and I had to have or I had to be a daughter, a good daughter. XYZ, all the old things weren't there anymore. It was out of complete free will that I was choosing, that I was like, "Oh, actually, I want a relationship with my dad. Even if he can't be the dad I need, I still want a dad, and that's okay. And I accept that. Like my inner child wants that and I can give that to her and I can create safety for the dynamic that allows me to have some type of connection with him that again might not look how I would have wanted it to look as a kid, but it's still there and it's a new chance, a new opportunity, right?
If you have to not be around something to be okay, you're not healed yet. Right? That true integration, that true healing means that you have the capacity to be around something and it not to affect you.
Mm-hmm.
I
Like
would
that's true
accept
healing.
if you're like a heroin addict, you probably should
Well,
not.
yeah, obviously. I'm talking about like relationally.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
please don't hold on to my words like like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are obvious exceptions, right? Everything can be medicine and or poison. But I mean like with emotional capacity, with mental resiliency, right? The full integration for me, the key is that you can be in those environments or around those people that triggered you and no longer be triggered. You no longer are dependent on their behavior for your feelings.
And even
That
if
is true integration.
even if you are triggered, you can still handle it so differently inside of you. It's crazy. I've literally just seen it too many times in my own, play of this reality that because I changed, I created different ferociousness, boundaries, strength, standards, whatever it may be. Literally the same people in the same scenario. Literally, I could tell they felt I can't get away with this anymore. They would even poke, right? Test, attempt, try. And simply because of that space I was holding, they couldn't say that thing to me again. Or they couldn't keep taking the next steps to cross that line because I simply wouldn't tolerate it. Right. So like it's so interesting how the reality responds to us and ripples outward, right? Then we enter Sacred Seven, the seventh cycle, which in some ways is the perpetual cycle of the rest of our life. But that being said, you can visualize it like this spiral, right? We always talk about that visual of this spiral that we're always having oscillations on it, but it's still continuing in that upward trajectory. We have this new foundation that is so grounded. It's just who we are now. There doesn't have to be an explanation, a description, a curation, a presentation of it. This is our life. We are all the things. We are multidimensional. We love that about ourselves. We accept that about ourselves. We have come into total peace and acceptance of this uniqueness, of our life being utterly our own, and our place, our role, our dharma in this world, right? And our dharma with others. We don't need to have dogma. We don't need to have an external authority. We don't need to have external practices, although we often might choose them and they might still be relevant for us in many points and phases of our lives. And this image and aesthetic has completely died away, right? And so this is the phase of the rest of our life. And might I add, this phase still always has constant self-reflection. Constant evolution is still happening. This is a part of the human experience. Until we leave this body, we will continue to grow, we will continue to transform, and we will continue to have to look at deeper and deeper aspects of the self, of the shadow, and of the light. But this is that phase 7 is, I see my dark, I see my light, and I really genuinely love them both. And I know that they have brought me exactly where I needed to be. They have taken me exactly here. And now I have the freedom and the consciousness to decide the story that I want to keep writing in every moment.
Yes, ma'am. So to close us out, I want to give us a couple questions if you want to journal with these or just have some reflection with a friend. How to tell kind of maybe where you are. So here's those questions. Do I need to be seen? Do I need to be seen as spiritual? Or do I even want to be seen as spiritual? Am I becoming more honest and more authentic, or just more identified? Is my life getting truer, or is it just getting more aesthetic? More true to myself, my inner child, the desires of my heart, my purpose? Do I use spirituality to deepen my reality, right? Where everything becomes a spiritual practice, even cooking your eggs in the morning. Am I using spirituality to deepen my reality or to escape it? Am I more capable of love, responsibility, humor, and embodiment than I was before I started? And can I be deeply and profoundly awakened without needing to look like it, without needing to tell anybody? Am I satisfied in that knowing just for myself because of how beautiful and blissful life becomes? Okay? Well, that's it. Those are the 7 phases. Comment below or hit us up on Instagram at National Intuitive Academy.
You don't even need to pick a number, quote unquote, but to do this reflection and to really understand all of the oscillations we go through is very grounding in and of itself and very humbling. And just keeping that in the back of our mind as we journey in this human life really helps to keep our feet on the ground and make us a better human to others too in the process. So thanks for listening, guys. And we hope this episode brought you some deeper insight.
Peace and love.
Bye, y'all.
That's the tea.
Share with a friend, leave us a review.
And follow us on Instagram at National Intuitive Academy.